All right. Summer's been around me enough now that she understands my weak brand of humor. Okay, so we're going to record now. And like I said last week, I try to, I keep these under an hour so that nobody's committed to more than an hour of time away from their activities. I know summer's a busy time for all of us. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're on Unit 2 this week, chapters 4, 5, and 6 of your textbook. And we talk a little bit about working with families, and then curriculum as it pertains to our more significantly disabled populations. So let's just go ahead and dive into that. There's an embedded bonus question most nights, and so I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. But it has to do with my location this week, and so I'll tell you all in a few minutes where I am, but not until we're a little bit deeper into the evening, so that anybody that just happens onto the lecture later has to watch a little bit more of it before they get the answer to the bonus question. Okay, don't want to give it away.
But Dr. Kevin, you told us in last week's video.
Did I?
Where you were gonna be. Yeah, I paid attention. I watched it. I watched the recording.
Did I tell you already where I was
Yes.
going? Okay, where did I say I was going?
To your
Alice.
mom's.
To your mom's.
Oh,
And then
no.
you said the decor would be more 70s.
Yes.
Oh, no, that's a future week, but that's not this week. No,
Okay.
I'm in a hotel.
Oh,
I'm in a
okay.
hotel room right now.
Okay. I was like, it
I was
doesn't look
thinking
that,
the same
that
thing.
something.
No,
I was thinking the same thing.
That'll
I was like,
probably
okay,
be-
that doesn't look 270.
that'll probably be next week or the next. Okay. No, tonight I'm in a hotel room, and I'll tell you where it is in just a little bit. Okay. No, that's coming up. That's coming up in a few weeks, but around the 4th of July. But tonight I'm in a hotel room, but I'll tell you that in a few minutes when we get a little bit deeper into the hour, so that anybody that happens onto it has to watch more of the hour in order to get the answer. Okay, I don't want to give it away too soon, because that's a question on the quiz, is where is Dr. Cavan tonight? And you have to know the answer to that question to get those points. Okay, so let's see. I do want to talk just for a second about some of the videos that you've watched this week. The one, let's see, about the one about co-teaching. That was Marilyn Friend, just for a few minutes, just a couple of minutes long. Has anybody had a chance to watch that one yet? It's just an audio file that's just 2 minutes long or something like that. Marilyn Friend talks about co-teaching, and Marilyn Friend, if you haven't had an opportunity to do much in the way of research of co-teaching, she's kind of the guru of co-teaching. I think our textbook in the fall, in next winter's textbook, if you haven't already taken, and some of you've already taken that class, I think Rhonda may have already taken it, and I think a few of you have already taken that EDSP 5305. I think that Marilyn Friend is the author of that textbook we used. But she's kind of a guru in special ed circles, and certainly in the area of co-teaching. And so if you talk about the topic of co-teaching, she's the go-to person. And she says that when you ask people what co-teaching is, a lot of people just say that the definition is collaboration. And she said that's really basically a co-teaching 101 kind of a definition. And I would agree with that. She says that co-teaching is really a service delivery option, and it's much more complicated than just collaboration. And that is so true. It's more than just teachers working together. It's the way we offer service to students with disabilities. And it's more than just two adults being in the same room at the same time. She said that might be what we consider, two general educators. And she said that's team teaching. That might be one special educator and one paraprofessional. And she said that's just, I think she called it academic support or something to that effect. And that's true too. She said we don't want to discount the contribution of a paraprofessional, but they're not licensed or accredited or certified the same way a teacher is. And so let's don't pretend that it's something that it's not when we have a paraeducator in the room with a teacher. A paraeducator is not doing the same thing that a teacher is doing. They're assisting. They're not teaching. And if we give them that teaching responsibility, we've done too much. She doesn't say that. That's me editorializing right there. But I feel that way very strongly. If we give the paraeducator too much responsibility, we've overstepped what they're qualified to do. But a true co-teaching model is where we've got two equally certified people hopefully in different areas, using their expertise in those two different areas to best serve the needs of the student. And so ideally it's your special educator who has that expertise in specializing instruction, and your general educator who's got expertise in content area specialty. And so then they meld their skills to the needs of that particular student. And that's what co-teaching is. And that's a service delivery option. And that's a great definition. I don't think we're utilizing that nearly enough in schools. And what's the reason that we're not? Marilyn Friend didn't speak to this in that little audio clip, but why do you think we don't utilize co-teaching enough?
We don't have enough staff available to do it.
Absolutely. It's a staffing issue, and it's a monetary issue, isn't it? We can't afford 2 teachers in every classroom. We can't afford 2 teachers in half of the classrooms, and we don't have enough staff. We don't have enough staff right now to fill all the classrooms we do have. If you just look on the, I was reading an article online just yesterday, something about Dallas ISD has this enormous teacher shortage. They're going to start giving huge raises to the staff that they do have to try to encourage people to come and work for Dallas ISD. I know the same is true in Fort Worth ISD. I don't think to the same degree that it is in Dallas, but I know that a lot of the rural schools are struggling too to get staff. I know it's a statewide problem. It's probably a nationwide problem, but I know it's a problem in Texas right now. So we've got this issue with staffing everywhere. So the last thing we're going to be able to do is staff classrooms with 2 qualified professionals when we can't get enough to staff classrooms with 1 qualified professional. And we don't have enough substitutes to go around right now either. So it's a pipe dream at the moment to think that we're going to have this co-teaching model at the ready for every child that needs it. But it is something that we should be planning for and working towards to provide more opportunities for our students that really do need that kind of an arrangement.
Dr.
So,
Kevin, I was
yeah.
going to add to that. In 2009 and 2010, when I was a 5th and 6th grade resource math teacher, I did co-teach in 1 5th grade math class and 1 6th grade math class. And another thing that can sometimes hinder co-teaching is you don't realize the amount of planning time that you have to set aside, that I had to set aside with the 5th grade math teacher and with the 6th grade math teacher for it to be a true co-teach.
Absolutely.
You know, if you just show up that morning and you're like, so what are we doing? It's not effective. you really do have to say, okay, this is the day we're going to meet and go over the lessons for the week. And it's usually after school because they're busy. And so, or my conference didn't match up with theirs. But the way that we did it is I would do the warm up, and then it would be the gen ed teacher's turn to do the meat and potatoes, the little mini lesson. And then when we would do the independent practice time, that's when I would sit with my students. And yes, they were kind of at their own little table just because it was just easier for me to help all of them. But that was sort of how we did it at the intermediate school in Stephenville. And I really liked it. The kids liked it. It was really fun. They thought it was kind of fun to see a different teacher like me come in and act a little silly and sing my math songs, because the other teacher was very like straight faced, like her eyes were like this when Miss Langford came in to do the warm up. It was kind of funny, actually.
That's cool. And I think that's a great example. And you make a wonderful point there that planning is a huge issue, and you've got to coordinate all those things. And so it's not just an issue of money and personnel, it's an issue of time as well. So great point. Another one of the videos that we have this week is about self-advocacy. And in the video, the moderator talks about choice making and decision making, problem solving, and goal setting, and how important each of those things are to the process of self-advocacy and self-determination. And as I was watching it again this time, and I've watched those, each summer that I've taught this class, I'm reminded how those are important skills for all of us and for all kids, not just students with disabilities, but for any student. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I fell short on some of those with my own children who maybe were, in fact, one of my kids particularly is lacking in some of those skills as an adult. And I'm thinking, okay, now what did I do for this one and this one and this one that I didn't do for this one who's lacking somewhat in decision-making skills and choice making and problem solving? What could I have done differently with that one that I did for the others that seemed to get it, and that one didn't so much? So I'm not sure what the answer is for that, but every student, every child, every young adult needs those skills to be successful in life, whether they have a disability or not. And how we embed those is critical for every young adult, and especially those who have disabilities. There's a young woman in the video named Juliana who has Down syndrome, and she's quite a success story. She's sitting beside her dad. She's 29 years old, talking about her job and her the things that she does for volunteer work, and it sounds like she's got a very full life. And I'm thinking, if that's the profile that her life has, then certainly she's got a lot of things that can be said as a thumbs up from her parents and her teachers and therapists and anybody else who worked with her. She seemed to have it going on that a lot of us who have typically developing kids can't necessarily say for our adult children. Let's see. There's another video about engaging families, and I want to talk about engaging families for a few minutes, and then I've got a few points on a PowerPoint, and then we'll be done for the evening. But engaging families, there's a video about a young mom who has a 5-year-old with autism, and she's posed a few questions about what makes what have been the highs and the lows that she's experienced as a parent of a student with a disability. And mind you, her child is only 5. And, she talks about some things that she's had to kind of fight for in IEP meetings, and, some challenges that she's had. And it just made me reflect on all of the ARD meetings that I've sat through that have been challenging, and where parents felt like they were, having to fight or, argue or, have a difficult a relationship with the school personnel over an issue that, they felt extremely strongly about. And I just, I always empathize with the parent and think, okay, what could we as school personnel do differently to make this not so difficult, not so hard for the family, make it a smoother experience for everybody. As a diagnostician for many, many years, and then as a director of special ed, I always just wanted the process to be smoother, just smoother for everybody, and for everybody to leave the meeting feeling positively, and not to have contention and hard feelings and that kind of thing, and everybody to be happy. And that's just not always the case. Everybody's not always happy. And what can we do as a school to smooth out that process? What do you think? What do you all think from your perspectives? What do we need to do as educators to smooth out that process for families?
I think it's very important to listen, and just have that mindset of, this is a mom that wants the best for her child, just like we as the educators want the best for the child as well. And I think whenever we convey to the parent that we are here to listen and that we are a team and that we want to do the best thing for your child as well, it kind of makes them take a deep breath, and then they're like, okay, I feel better. They're on my side, we're not competing. Because I had an ARD similar to that at the end of the year, a mom that wanted to sue the school. The girl was only in kindergarten and she was only receiving speech services. However, the mom felt she needed more, like some resource time. And so she wanted to sue the school district. So I'd never been in an ARD meeting before with this mom. And so I was invited to it because we were going to propose that she has a minute. And I was listening to the mom, and I wrote down some notes, and I could tell that there were some things that a therapist was doing with the child at home, like those visual boards. And I said, well, maybe we can incorporate that at school as well. And so just little things like that, like listening and being intuitive. Sorry, my daughter's getting back in the car, so I'm getting her.
Sure.
Get over. And, just being an active listener, and then trying to think of good recommendations that we can do both at home and school. She just started crying and went over on the other side of the table and gave me a hug. And she was like, thank you. She was just so thankful to feel like someone was listening to her and that she wasn't there to have to fight. Like, we wanted to be on her team. We wanted to help her. And so I think as educators and as ARD committee members, if we can just communicate that with our tone of voice and just let them know, we're here to help. We love your child, not quite as much as a parent does, but and I even sometimes say, as a mom, I understand where you're coming from, because I would fight for my child as well,
Yeah.
And to kind of piggyback on what she was saying as well, I agree with everything that she said. I think a lot of times when our parents come in, we give them the impression that we are superior and you're not. I mean, we're sitting on one side of the table instead of welcoming them in. We're sitting there with our arms crossed. I don't think it's a welcoming environment. So
Right.
if we don't build those relationships with parents first off, and then if we don't make them feel welcome, then I don't think that they're I think that just kind of hinders the process as well. And one thing I realized during the reading is our biases. I realized I have a lot of biases that I didn't know that I had. just from the reading. So if we go in with those biases, we're doing a disservice to the families as well, because we're already thinking we already know everything and haven't taken their side of it haven't taken that into account either.
I agree completely. Good
I
point.
think, I think what else is really important is that we forget that we do know more than the parent, but like that shouldn't be taken in the wrong context. Like we need to remember that they also need to be knowledgeable. So it just like with anything, like I know nothing about cars, so when I go get my car fixed and they start talking in all these car terms, I get offended and a little abrasive because I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it puts anyone in kind of an attack mode. And so, especially with there being a child involved, I think it's important to remember like, you just need to explain things also, like the things that you're wanting to do. Stop for a second and explain what that is exactly and why you see it to be important instead of just saying your child needs this and just leaving it at that. I feel like I work in a transformation zone, and so a lot of my parents don't know a lot about the education their child is receiving. And so
Mhm.
that's been really important in the ARD meetings I've been a part of this year. So just like making sure that they're on the same level we are, we try to get them there as much as possible during the meeting.
Good
And a lot
point.
of times they just agree. Well, yes, I agree, because they have you can tell they have no clue
Right.
what we're talking about.
Yeah. They don't want to appear foolish or
Mhm.
uninformed. Yeah, good point. Good point. This parent says in the video, she says, I want them to, I think she says, I want them to care about the things about my child that I care about, or something to that effect, or like the things about him that I like, or something along that line. And I thought, well, that's an interesting statement, an interesting point, that she wants she wants the school personnel to know him the way she knows him. And of course, there's no way that teachers and other people at school can ever have the same relationship with a child that a parent does. But we can try. We can try to know each child on a deeper level, and at least reflect to a parent that we have a level of concern for the child that's deeper than perhaps we reflect it sometimes. That there is I hesitate to say the word love, but that I think we do tend to love the children that we come into contact with, that we have a care that goes pretty deep, or we wouldn't be in this profession. All right, let me share my screen, and we're going to go through a few things in this little presentation here that just covers some things from tonight. Let's see. Okay, well, understanding families of children with disabilities. Having a child with a disability, we're told from research that it's not unlike going through the stages of grief that you would experience with a death. And so there's that initial stage of shock, denial, or disbelief when you confront the child's disability. And then you have a phase of adjustment where you go through anger, guilt, depression, shame, and then eventually an adaptation stage where the parent, family members, etc., go through acceptance. And so again, not unlike that of the grief cycle that we've all heard about when you experience a death. And we've got to remember that when we're dealing with people who have children with disabilities, particularly these more significantly disabling disabilities. Parents, every parent who gives birth to a child expects that child to be perfect when they're born. At least they hope and pray for that. And when they don't have that fulfilled, they are certainly going to have some disappointment. But then we do have, as your book talks about, this resilience model. And we've got these 5 stages here: identification of the disability, some self-education, reflection about self and family, then some advocacy and empowerment kicks in, and then some appreciation and enlightenment. So most families do have that resilience that takes over, and they learn those adaptations and coping strategies for dealing with disability in their children. So what are some common challenges that confront family members? Well, with parents, there's that self-education advocacy issue, planning for the future. I think one of the biggest things that I've found when talking with parents who have children with disabilities is what will happen to my child when I'm gone. So planning for the future. And of course, we see some parents who are very almost militant in that advocacy for their child, getting their child what they feel their child needs, deserves in the school setting and beyond. And then the third thing here on this list is that fear of rejection from their own peer group, not having an opportunity to be included with their friend group, and do the things that people of their own age and social standing, etc., get to do, not having to have a typical vacation. My daughter, as I've talked a lot about my daughter with my classes, and I did a little bit last week, but she lives down in the Austin area now, and has done some. She's done it both as a volunteer and as a paid position. She's done some, I guess you'd call it, respite care for families with kids with disabilities. And in fact, she did some of that just a week or two ago. I think it's been 2 weeks now. She's got a young woman that was a student of hers at Westlake High School when she taught there, and she has since graduated and she's into adulthood. And she has a pretty significant disability and can't be left alone. And the parents never get a night out because they have this young adult daughter who cannot be left alone. And so Meredith, my daughter, goes over and sits with her and spends the evening with her and gives them some time away. And just for an evening at the movies or a dinner or whatever they'd like to do. A couple of weeks ago, she went and stayed with her while they just spent the evening out in their own swimming pool. They don't want to leave her in the house unattended while they spend the evening out by the pool. And so she'll give them a break just to do some of the things that normal people want to do, but fear they can't leave their child alone, even when they're an adult. How about siblings, though? What happens with siblings in families with a disabled member? Well, they get less time with their parent. Sometimes there's jealousy. Sometimes they have added responsibility. And sometimes, even though we don't like to talk about it, there's even that factor of embarrassment. So how can we as educators partner effectively with parents? I think we've talked about that a little bit already, how we can partner with parents. So let's talk about some barriers to effective communication. We've got sometimes that unequal relationship, and I think that was alluded to a moment ago. I think that's what Kaylee was talking about. You know, we're the expert, and the parent is not, at least where our schooling is concerned. Sometimes we have miscommunication. Sometimes we have differing styles of communication. There's certainly no argument that we do have differing agendas. And oftentimes we have cultural differences. And I find this increasingly true in our Texas schools. And I think we're all very accustomed to the Spanish English language difference. What I'm finding we have lots and lots of these days are immigrants from countries that sometimes I've not heard of, and languages being spoken that I've never heard of, and just differences that are wildly different, cultural differences that are very, very different. And so we've got that impact in our schools. I think in our larger cities, sometimes, you know, we've got 15, 20 different languages being spoken in our schools. And of course, with each one of those comes a different culture. And so lots and lots of differences that we've never even thought about before. And all of those things that we've got to consider. I think I've told this story before. A few years ago, when I was the director of special ed over in Hurst, Euless, Bedford, we had a child who was the teacher at the kindergarten at one of our campuses was just demanding a special ed evaluation for a child who would not sit down appropriately in the, let's see, was that it? Would not sit down in the cafeteria the right way, would not sit on the carpet the right way, kept taking off her shoes, would not, you know, do the things that the teacher wanted her to do. The mother was, the teacher wanted to make a special ed referral. Well, the mother came to school and wanted to see me and was just in tears. And she was of some sort of Arab descent, and I think maybe Pakistani or something like that. And was dressed very differently, did not speak a lot of English, but came to my office in tears and said that her child, you know, did not have a disability and she would not consent to any kind of a special ed evaluation. And she said, would you come to my home and see her? We want you to come to our home. And I can't remember exactly now why, but my assistant director and I did go to the home, and we went to the home and we walked in, and they asked us to remove our shoes at the front door. And this was part of their culture. And one of the issues at school had been that the child wouldn't keep her shoes on. Well, you know, that makes sense when you go to the home and the shoes are all at the front door. Nobody was allowed to wear their shoes inside the house. And so the child wouldn't keep her shoes on this carpet in the classroom, in the kindergarten. We went into the home, and there were only 2 chairs in the living area, and they had obviously brought those in for us, and they had us sit in the chairs. They wanted to serve us food, and they all sat on the floor around us while they had us sit in the chairs and wanted to serve us something to eat. What they had was, you know, some sort of like a porridge in a bowl, and to eat it with bread. And another complaint of the child at school was that she wouldn't use her knife and fork. Well, they didn't at home. They wanted her to sit in the chair in the cafeteria. She wanted to sit on the floor. Well, these were all cultural issues that we saw on display in the home. And so if you don't understand some of the cultural issues that are going on, you can't appreciate what's happening with the child. And I saw it, up close and personally with this family. And the teacher did not have a lot of appreciation for any of that. We ended up moving that child out of that teacher's classroom and into another teacher's classroom, and the child began to thrive in the classroom of a different teacher. So sometimes just the way we communicate can be key to communication. Avoid using certain kinds of words like troublemaker, unprepared, poor worker, lazy, behavior problem, and just put a more positive spin on things, like disturbs the class or comes to class without supplies, doesn't complete assignments, requires multiple reminders, rather than some of these more negative terms. Can get a lot further than some of that negative terminology. Your book talks about person-centered planning. And there are a few types of person-centered planning. I think that's around page 96, 7, 8, something like that. And there's a particular question in your quiz this week. Person-centered planning is critical when we start talking about individuals with more significant disabilities, because we want to make sure that we have those things in place as individuals with more significant disabilities mature and start making their way toward exiting the secondary environment. So personal futures planning is one of these that's not listed on this slide. And then we have the McGill Action Planning System. That one is more designed for adults, while the choosing options and accommodations for children, or COACH method, is more designed for younger children. The personal futures planning is one that's, your book says it's a radical departure from traditional planning approaches and is intended to provide a positive approach for planning life activities for persons of various ages. And so it can be used for people of all ages. McGill is for older people, and COACH is for exclusively for children. So if we talk about determining instructional goals, your book talks about several things here as well. The first thing that you want to do when determining instructional goals is you want to look at what you've already been using. The primary thing I think you always want to use is PLAFs. You want to look at the students' PLAFs. What's the thing that's been driving your goals up to this point? And that all begins on page 106 of your textbook. So collecting information from existing records, and you want to begin with that. Look at the IEP that you already have. Look at the PLAFs that you already have, and use that as your driving force. Parent interviews, see what the family has to say about what's going on. And then use your adaptive behavior skills, your ABUS, your Vineland, the things that you've already got in the record, in the formal record, as far as standardized assessments are concerned. And then ecological inventories. This is where you analyze the behavior or how is your book describes it in a particular way. The ecological inventory. A really good definition there. The analysis of the activity required within a particular setting So analyzing the activity required within a particular setting is what an ecological inventory is. And that's the very best way for determining instructional goals. And then lastly on this list are determination skills. This mantra that we see here, nothing about me without me. I think we heard a little bit about that the first week we were together in one of the videos that we watched. And that's a great slogan for using with our students with more significant disabilities. We want them included in the process. We want their voice to be heard, and letting that help drive our instructional goals can be critical. We don't want to be derailed, though, from what we know as educators to be important to the process. And so back to what Kaylee said again at the beginning of our time together, and that was that we are the experts. We do know what's right instructionally for students, or we should anyway, and we want that to be our driving force. We want to always include the voice of the parent and the voice of the student, but not to the exclusion of what we as educators know is best. And the ecological inventory, along with our adaptive behavior skills, the things that we have in the student record, the interviews that we have with family members, all of that body of knowledge together, as we as diagnosticians know, we put all of that information together, and that preponderance of evidence is what helps us make decisions as good evaluators. So how can we incorporate quality of life and self-determination into the IEP process? Well, that's a little bit about what I just said a moment ago, that we want to embed that, but we don't want it to overrule what we as educators know is part of in the best interest of the student, academically, functionally, social and emotionally, what's best for the student. And so we want all of those factors to go together, and have the self-determination work into that as well. You know, it's like the student that says, when we say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say, I want to be a basketball player in the NBA. And, they're a 5'5" kid with no speed, Well, are we doing them any favor by encouraging their goal of being a basketball player in the NBA? And, somebody will tell me, oh, there was that, what was his name? That player that played for was it the Mavs years ago that was teeny tiny? I can't remember his name now, but he wasn't the center, he was not the center. I think we've got to do the right thing by kids, and we don't want to squash their dreams, but we also want to give them some realistic goals. And so we can help them pursue the things that they want to do, but also help them have a realistic goal to work toward the things that they want to do. We've got to, I've had kids through special ed for years say, things like, well, I want to be a doctor someday. And their scores in their science classes were, pitiful, or they were, they weren't even in regular science classes. They were in special ed classes for science, and you're not going to go to med school if you're in special ed science. That's just a fact of life. And so what do we do instead? Well, we can encourage them to pursue something that maybe would support the medical profession, but maybe align their goals a little bit more clearly with their abilities. Again, I don't want to kill anybody's dreams, but maybe align goals with reality. And I think that's part of our responsibility as educators. So this week we've got a discussion board. We've got a quiz. Oh, and I hadn't mentioned until now, I'm in Corpus Christi right now. The other Dr. Cavan and I have been celebrating our anniversary this week, and we took a little road trip down to Corpus Christi, and we went to the Texas Aquarium yesterday, and we went to the beach today, and we're headed back to the Metroplex tomorrow. So we've had a few fun days in the sun, and we've eaten a lot of seafood and headed back home. So Corpus Christi is where we've been. And there'll be some other choices on your multiple choice, but make sure you click on Corpus Christi, okay? That's the right answer. And that will show me that you have watched your webinar in its entirety, okay? I was going to discuss our choice assignment tonight, but when I went to click on my examples of choice A and choice B on my document a while ago, they're Google Docs that I can't get to. For some reason, they're not accessible to me because I don't know, I don't have access to those Google forms. So I'm going to have to do a little work on that and get them where I can access them, because if I can't access them, y'all can't either. So I'm going to have to figure out why. Next week, you'll have a discussion board, a quiz, and an activity. And I'll get the choice assignment examples available to you between now and then so that we can talk about it. Okay. Any questions? Anybody?
Sorry for the chaos in my life around here this afternoon.
That's all right. Anything else? And I'm a few minutes before 8, and you all have been very attentive and very interactive, and thank you so much. It's nice to see a few new faces.
I just wanted to say congrats on the anniversary.
Well, thank you.
That's exciting. Enjoy the beach.
Well, thank you. We did very much today.
That's awesome.
It was fun. It's been beautiful. And we didn't realize it until we got down here that all of these beaches down here are public roadways. You just drive out onto the beach. Did y'all know that? You just drive on the beach. So I was glad I didn't bring my car. I was glad we brought his truck.
Are you guys like in the North Padre?
Yeah, North Padre, uh-huh.
Yeah, that's a great area. We like going down there ourselves. So
it
it
is
is cool
beautiful.
how you can drive out.
Yeah, it was real fun. We drove all along it last night, and then we went out today and got our little beach chairs, and he got a boogie board and did all that water stuff today. I got a lot of water in my face and in my nose. And then we just sat we got some of those little low beach chairs and just sat in the surf, and it was real fun just to have the water come up on you. Had a good time. Eating a lot of shrimp. All right, girls, I'll turn you loose tonight. Thank you for being with me, and I'll maybe see you next week. I hope so. All right.
Dr. Cavan, can I ask a quick question after everyone gets off?
Sure. Okay, I'll turn off the recording now, and I'll say goodbye to you all, and then I'll stay on with Melissa. Bye.